Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome back. It's Wednesday, the 29th of March, 2023, and we're just a few days to the end of quarter, and we'll be seeing how many deliveries Tesla makes this quarter. It's looking like it's a pretty strong one from everything that I've seen. And then here at Giga-Texas, as you can see in the new car staging and transportation lot, there are a lot of Model Ys that have been produced and are waiting to be picked up, and many trucks picking them up and moving them off site today at a pretty frenetic pace. So it's great to see. Now there is something nearby this area that is new, and I'm not really sure what it is. As you can see here, near that helicopter pad and that new car testing and calibration section, we see some sort of device, a large device being set up, and it looks like two trailers put together, and then on this end you can see what looks like vanes, almost like an air inlet on this side of this structure. And then if we go on to the other side of the structure, as you can see here, the crews seem to be setting up some sort of turntable or raised platform on the end of this device. There's also some sort of a funnel on the end of this device as well. So it's almost like it's a small, I don't know, wind tunnel of some sort, but I really don't know what it is, and I'm hoping that some of my viewers may know, and you'll let me know in the comment section. I think that would be really appreciated, so thanks. On to some of the construction that we see at the site. Here on the south end at Stamping 2, an interesting change, and that is forklifts are picking up a lot of the materials that have been stored on the east side of stamping and moving it over as if they're going to be preparing to move this into Stamping 2. Now this indicates most likely that a lot of the concrete work may be completed and they're starting to assemble machinery again, particularly on that east bay of this 2-bay section. So something that I'll be continuing to monitor, but I think it's another very good sign. One other thing that I want to talk about for what you'll see today is up at the die shop, more of those exterior wall panels have been installed, particularly on the east side and also on the north side. We also get, as you can see here, some views into that heavily reinforced and deep foundation on the northwest corner of this structure. Still looks like more piping and rebar needs to be installed into that reset framed section before we'll see any concrete. Last thing I'm going to just mention is a reminder, as you can see here, I did a video yesterday. It was a deep dive video that has to do with two new permits that have been filed, specifically one for the east support facilities, and we talk about that in that video, and then also on the south end the building expansion permit, and we update quite a bit of information that I've covered before and provide some new information in a very detailed format. So I recommend you take a look at that video if you want to get more information about some significant permits that are going on. Otherwise, it's a very interesting day today, pretty busy around the site, but I think all eyes are on production as we get towards the end of the quarter. As always, thank you very much for watching and for your great support, and I hope you have a great rest of the week. Take care.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. Another beautiful morning to fly here at Giga-Texas. Here's a good view of the south end. The thing that stands out to me is just how the ground is now almost completely prepared for construction to begin. And as a reminder, if you take a look at my video yesterday, the 28th of March, I kind of talk a little bit more about what's going on at that south end. So let's go ahead and proceed over towards the east and the southeast and fly over this green belt and take a look at some of the activity and changes that are going on this side of the site today. As we arrive here on the southeast side, this clearing is getting a lot more work to prepare this grade for potential new construction. And also, as a reminder, my video on the 28th of March, I talked in depth about the new permit and the work that is going on here and what we may be seeing constructed. But right now it looks like there's a lot of effort to complete the initial grade work. Some gravel has been spread on to the site, and they're just finishing up that northeast corner. And also what we see is that there's no more dirt that's being brought over here. It's just all gravel. So this is a great sign that that grade is nearly to the point where they need it to do the next phase of construction. You can also see this pathway with some of the trees that have been planted recently. It's still very interesting. I'm not sure what the purpose is. But as we look at this clearing, this is where most of the dirt was used to prepare that other surface, and there's no activity here today, which means one more indication that that work has, at least for now, been completed. As we approach the east side of the building, I want to point your attention to the right-hand side of the screen. I'll pop an arrow up here and show you this is where the Model Ys are exiting once they have finished production. You just see a white and now a red Model Y coming out of the factory here, and inside it looks like there's another vehicle getting ready to come out as well. And the production rate seems to be pretty high today. I haven't done a count on the number of Model Ys coming out of that door, but that gives you an indication of the work. Now here's something very interesting on this side of the stamping. You can see that forklift pulling away that white wrapped item, and just next to these blue wrapped items as well. I'm going to follow this forklift over and show you where it is going. It's actually going over to the south end of the building, right in front of the doors for stamping 2. And the indication that that may be for us is that the concrete work, certainly for some of the equipment that's being installed to do metal forming and metal stamping, may be completed, at least on the east bay, near where this equipment's being moved in. And if that's the case, then this is another great sign that work inside to have that production equipment is really picking up pace. You can see some other deliveries here waiting to be moved inside, and some trench work to remove the rest of the old steel corrugated pipe. And again, we talked about that in my 28 March video in depth, so take a look at that for more information. Here on the south side of the cyber pond, we see these trailers with more rebar. Quite a bit of that has already been used inside. Again, I think that's inside stamping 2, where that equipment is starting to be moved in. Here's a closer view of the south end. You can just see a few more of the trench work where they are removing and reconfiguring some of the corrugated pipe. Once this is completed, it looks like this entire section is nearing the point where construction could begin. And I'm going to give you a close-in view here. This is trench work that's going on with just the last segments of this steel pipe. You can see 2 of them here on the left-hand side. And once this is removed, then pretty much all of the steel has been removed from this south end. Next to the wall here, we see some components being arrayed here on the ground, but also all of the rest of the conduit that was for the superchargers has been removed. You also see some rebar on the ground in this area as well, so I'm not sure what that is other than a storage location. Here we see the last bits of the steel pipe on this trench have been removed, and it looks like they are doing some work here on these smaller diameter pipes. You see a couple of them sticking out of the ground here. They kind of are crimped off on the ends. That's an interesting development, but I believe that this is just part of the system that's being removed. As we fly over the remnants of this parking lot where all of the asphalt's been removed, we're approaching that underground water management pipe. The system is to manage the groundwater in this area. And we talked about this as well in my 28 March video. So take a look at that for the reasons why it was installed and how it may operate. On this wall, we see the remaining parts of the conduit for the superchargers are being removed. Some more work here on this corner of the building and the windows that have been removed. No changes on that in the last week or so. As we continue to go to the north, we see that the white stain work has really progressed. It's now up to where those windows begin to widen. And also on this side, we see some of this equipment in the green wrap getting prepared to be moved inside. This is production equipment that's being used to set up the general assembly lines 2 and 3, just inside where the white stain is being applied onto the exterior walls. Here you can see the plastic has been moved all the way up to where the windows are starting to widen up. So we should start seeing some of the stain work here very soon. And I'm kind of curious to see how that looks with this new entrance. As we approach the entrance, we can see that there's been some work in these triangular sections next to the cyber berms. Looks like they have some either small pipes or maybe some sticks that are sticking up out of the ground here. I think that they might be small pipes, so that indicates that maybe the excavation work here, at least for now, is completed and will be starting to do some construction. On the left-hand side of the screen, you saw a new ramp that has been installed into that opening. And as we approach back here, I'll give you a closer look at the excavation in these triangular section and those small pipes or something sticking out of the ground in that very interesting pattern on both sides of the cyber berms. As I turn towards the west, I'll give you a good view of this landscape section where there's more of the plants that are in pots, some of them in the concrete planters. Looks like they're continuing to add more the trees into that, more of the equipment, and those very interesting what looks like concrete shaped items where that worker is. I'm still waiting to find out what those are, but hopefully we'll see some of the installation soon and it'll give us a good clue. But here's a good view across this section over to the main entrance so you can see how it looks today as they continue to work on the construction there. One other area here of interest is the tree installation in this clearing. Looks like the work to install the trees is almost done. Perhaps one more being installed, and then the other trees are waiting for installation other places around the site. As we continue to fly a little bit further to the north along this side of the building, I did notice this interesting delivery on this truck. So I'll bring the drone down and give you a zoomed in view. I'm not sure exactly what this is. It looks like there's 5 of these. 2 of them are underneath the tarp, and it may be some sort of either platforms or maybe almost looks like trailers of some sort. So if you know what they are, please let me know, and I'll look in the comments for your ideas. So thank you. While we're here, let's pop up onto the roof on this northwest corner and take a look at the progress on the ducting and the cooling enclosures on the right. And it looks like the amount of vapors coming up, it is definitely operational. Still more of those cooling towers with some plastic, and also this temporary scaffolding over a new section here that's been added, and you can also see where those solar panels have been removed from this particular section, at least for right now. But otherwise, a good view of the northwest corner section of this portion of the building, which is right over the 4680 production section of the building. As I turn around this crane, I'll bring the drone back down. We'll see that most of the materials on this corner of the building going into these platforms has been moved away, and it's actually a very clean north end altogether, which is a great sign that there's not a whole lot of construction going on in the inside, so they may have wrapped up what they've been working on. And this is a good view here of the other 2 platforms next to the paint shop, and again, it's a very clean section, not a lot of equipment or parts that are waiting to be moved inside. I'm giving you a view of the roof here over the casting machine structure. What I'm looking for to see is if there's any roof work to install some of those exhaust pipes that you see in other sections, and this would be where the furnace that would support the 9,000 ton Gigapress, I think, would have to have an exhaust port for them to do the melting of the aluminum. I don't see that right now, but something I'm going to continue to monitor. Speaking of aluminum, I'm zooming in on this truck where they're loading up some of the castings, and then next to it you see those kind of square castings. I believe that is melted down old castings, and they use that to recycle and then make more of the castings. So it's a great way for them to be very efficient in the production of the castings and not waste materials. So let's turn the drone around here and proceed back up to the north and take a look at some of the work going on where the megapack and the electrical switchyard is being constructed. In addition to the gravel that's been spread here on this portion of the construction site, it looks like there's more earthwork continuing to level out the grade in this rectangular section now. And you can see one of the earthworking equipment is at operation right now. This entire section has become very rectangular. It used to be triangular. And I think that's another great sign that we'll start seeing some construction related to the Megapack installation here very soon. At the temporary electrical switchyard, as I bring the drone down, you can see most of the equipment and items have been moved away from this temporary storage location up to the new electrical switchyard, where all of this work is really getting close to the final stages. Next to these transformers, we see crews adding more of the disconnect bars, more of the steel, finishing up some footings for some additional equipment in between the two transformers, but otherwise it looks like it's really getting close to having a final configuration here. As we continue to move towards the north, you can see the main focus right now is crews on those man lifts installing the electrical wires and connecting between these A-frame structures and the new power poles. And you'll see more of that activity here on the north end, and quite a bit more of those electrical wires, as you can see clearly now, have been installed. So let's take a look around this end of the construction site and then turn back towards the main building and take a look at how this looks today. So as we fly across the north end here, we'll take a look at the progress at the battery cathode and die shop complex. Also, you see at the middle of the screen some continuing work here at the Martin Marietta concrete batch plant. And as I've been speculating for quite some time, and I'm very much expecting that Martin Marietta plant should at some point be closed down and moved away, but it's still operational. This is a great view from the north end of the construction site, just northeast of the battery cathode plant. What I'm trying to show you here is continued earthwork to remove the remaining portions of this particular hill. You can see it's kind of terraced a little bit on the top as they continue to remove the dirt, and it's been used in various sections around the construction site. So that's another thing that at some point we'll see resumed work. More of the materials, concrete panels, and workshops here on the north end as well. And also these 4 stainless steel tanks and 2 of the white tanks being stored up here as well. And these were moved about 2 days ago, and I talked about that in my previous my Monday video, the 27 March video. As we look on the east side, it looks like there's possibly another portions of a yellow crane being installed. The cell test lab continues to have work on it, and that's that smaller steel structure. In this opening, it looks like there's been some equipment that has been moved in and is starting to be installed, and you can see that right next to the worker, and that gives you a really good idea of the scale as well. And as we continue to go further to the south, we see those Evapco enclosures and fan units that I still believe are going to be moved on to the galvanized steel structure on the west side at some point. And this gives you a good view of a lot of the platforms and tanks that are being installed in that section of the building as well. More of the platform components here in white waiting for assembly. More equipment that has been moved in to the ground floor of the opening next to the two platforms, and also just an overall view of work going on inside this large open area with that trapezoidal concrete apron. As we continue to move around the south end of the building, we'll get closer to the die shop and take a look at the activity here. A lot of it that you can see is the ground slab in the center and east sides have been completed. There's still some sections with that yellow moisture barrier waiting construction on this side. And also you can see that formwork on that corner on the ground. That is the perimeter grade beam that will support the wall panels as they are installed. And you can get an idea here of how the wall panel installation appears on the die shop. You can see that very large opening. That big equipment will be moved in and out from the die shop itself. And then I'm going to turn the drone back towards the east, give you a good view of a lot of the activity going on here on the west side of the battery cathode plant near that galvanized steel structure. And also I'm going to zoom in here underneath the crane to give you an idea of some of the equipment that is starting to be unwrapped. We've seen this wrapped equipment for quite some time. Now it looks like it's almost to the point where we'll see installation. Looks like a lot of these tan tanks and assembled units getting ready for their installation. Pretty cool. And this is a good close-in view of the steel structure itself, and you can see all the components and pumps all installed on the ground level, and how this entire section looks today. As we pull away a little bit further to the north, you can see where the temporary platform used to be. A lot of activity going on inside this open section of the battery cathode plant and all three of the floors. And it looks like most of the equipment has been installed and they're just doing a final assembly of the interior in that particular section. The temporary storage locations still have some equipment, as you can see, and another view of these large tanks that are being stored up here on the northwest corner of this complex. Let's fly back along the side of the building towards the die shop so you can get a good view of how this appears on the north end. Looks like about half of the wall panels have now been installed on this section. Again, you can see that yellow moisture barrier and the formwork. This shows that they are doing the perimeter grade beam preparation, and we'll see concrete here soon. And they need that before they can install the rest of the wall panels. I'll zoom in so you can get a good idea of how this deep foundation looks today. You can see those very large forms, more of the either conduit or piping system being installed in and amongst the rebar. And you can see the rebar next to that worker as he's walking over it. That's more that will be installed into that large recessed foundation soon. I'll continue to fly around this side of the building and give you a different perspective of this foundation, and I will zoom in so you get a good view. With the worker in there, that gives you a good idea of the scale. And he's kind of walking on what looks like to be gray pipe, so it's probably conduit of some sort. And then this other reinforced section getting that yellow moisture barrier is being prepared for construction. You can also see some more of that perimeter grade beam being prepared for installation here on this side of the building as well. And as I turn back, bring the drone down just a little bit, you can see how this corner and on the south side is all being prepared for that perimeter grade beam. And once this is all done, we'll probably start seeing more of the wall panels installed around this portion of the building as well. As I pull away, I'll point the drone down to the ground. You can see these 4 concrete vaults. That's where the conduit has been installed. This is going to be the way to get electricity to support the die shop operation. You can also get a good view here of some of the trenching and excavation work, and also the blue water pipe and the black HDPE treated water pipe on this section of the construction site. I'm going to follow along the Tesla road, show you some of the continued trenching and installation work of the blue water pipe on this section of the site. You can also see crews busy on this side working on the blue water pipe here near where it'll be connected to the water main. Across the road you can see more trench work, and this is crews preparing to install more of the black HDPE pipe. So let's cross the road and take a look at some of the activity a little bit closer in. Continue to fly south towards the east side of the building, and we'll take a look at some of the activity on this portion of the site. Here is where all of the castings that will be used for construction of the Model Ys are temporarily stored until they're moved into the body in white. You can see this blue trailer, that's the entrance for the workers. You can see that fenced section that kind of brings them over to the factory. And then here we see more of the castings being stored in and amongst some temporary platforms and ramps. And here's a good view, I'll zoom in, of the work on this south retaining wall for this section of receiving doors. It looks like the pipe work may be completed, and they may be starting to fill this section back in. And then once that is completed, they can pour the concrete, and then we can complete all of these receiving doors. There's a good view of how the rest of them look right now. I noticed this very interesting assembly process for this, what I think is a testing rig, next to the helicopter pad, and I'll give you some close-in views of this. On this side of what looks to be two trailers joined together, there looks to be some vanes, almost as if this is the entrance for air, almost like a wind tunnel. And I'll give you a good view around this site so you can see how the assembly is going. You can see the Model Y, so you get a good idea of the scale. Looks like there's a test office next to this section. Perhaps that's where they control the operation of this device. And then on this end, you can see what looks to be a funnel, and at the end, a platform that looks to be a turntable of some sort. Now, I'm not sure exactly what this is, but I've had a lot of viewers comment from my tweets of the videos of images earlier today that they think that this may be to test the vehicles, maybe a few for quality control for wind or perhaps water leaks, maybe as part of a random sampling of the cars before they're delivered. I don't know. If you know, please let me know, because I think that's a very interesting development. On the new car staging and transportation lot, as you can see, there are a lot of Model Ys lined up here. The trucks are constantly arriving, picking up the vehicles, and then taking them off in convoys today. So kind of a little bit different than what I've seen in the past, and this may all be related to that end of the quarter push. On this side of the new car staging lot, you can just see how many vehicles are staged here as well. So I think it's a really great sign for the end of quarter, which is just a couple of days away. I'm going to bring the drone up and turn back along the west to the south end and give you a good overall view of how the factory, the construction site, and the entire area looks today. And then I'm going to do a long pullback to give you a good reveal of as much of the site as I can as we continue to fly up to the north over the Megapack construction site, the electrical switch yard, and up towards the concrete batch plant. I hope that you enjoyed everything that you saw here, the information that I presented. Also, make sure you take a look at my 28 March video, where I have a lot more detail about several of the sections that we saw today, with explanations about what's going on and new permits as well. As always, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate your support, and I hope that you have a great rest of the week. Take care.